provide new resources for early education, support for educator training in school facilities, for more student aid and institutional development aimed at increasing access and affordability of higher education, and for options for new career pathways, to name just a few. Today, we can recognize the struggles and support a bright path forward. I thank all of you for coming tonight and want to acknowledge those who could not attend in person but are watching the live stream. Like so much of the education world, we're offering a hybrid, in-person, and remote access. And now it's my pleasure to introduce CEF's president this year, Luis Maldonado of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, who has been a steadfast leader in a difficult year. Luis?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's really good to see everyone. It really is. Thank you for coming. I certainly want to send some greetings to the folks who are watching the live stream. Welcome to the CEF Gala for 2021. I remember in 2019, the last time we held the gala, a little up the river there, or rather down the river, I had mentioned the fact that it was probably the first time we were in a room that actually had windows. Look at us now! We're outdoors, we're live streaming. CF is on the move. Things are happening. And all of you are part of it, so it's great to see everyone again. I certainly want to acknowledge whether you're watching us from Rochester, Miami, Los Angeles, or even San Antonio, Texas. Thank you for being part of this evening. I would like to begin by thanking several organizations, colleagues, and staff for the magnificent work in getting us to this point. Because of the time constraints, I would like to mention the Straight A's sponsors and Star Student Concerts. So, as a Straight A sponsor, I would like to acknowledge the American Federation of Teachers. The Star Student sponsors are the American Council on Education, American Library Association, the Council for Opportunity in Education, and the National Education Association. Thank you. And special thanks also to our many Dean's List and Honor Roll sponsors. Everyone is listed in tonight's program, so please check them out. Please join me in a round of applause for all our sponsors. I would like to recognize tonight's honorees, as well as the CEF's leadership. Please hold your applause to the end of the list. The Honorable Edward Markey. Yay! Thanks, Maureen. The Honorable Grace Meng, who unfortunately could not attend, and obviously the Honorable Bobby Scott, who unfortunately could not attend but has sent the video you will see shortly. And our other CF officers this year. I would like to acknowledge Emmanuel Guillory, CF Vice President from Nike. I'd like to acknowledge Danny Carlson, CF Treasurer. And Valerie C. Williams, CF Past President from the National Association of State Directors of Special Education. A sincere thank you to my fellow officers for your continued engagement and support of CF and our combined efforts and activities this year. Thank you all. A very special thank you to those CEF staff and CEF members who contributed and worked behind the scenes. Please wave as you're called. Sarah Abernathy, of course, you already heard from her. Cheryl Cohen, CEF Senior Advisor. And Max Selter, CEF Associate. Thank you, Max, for figuring out all the technology to make this happen. And all of the members of the Gala Committee, and especially its co-chairs, Berna Mandelwitz, Case and MRM Associates, and the CF Past President. And Peter DeYoe from Harvard University. Thank you, Peter. There you are. Would any congressional staff and administration staff present here tonight please wave? Thank you for being with us this evening. And lastly, would all the members of the CEF Board of Directors also please wave? And now for the main reason we're all here tonight, the CEF Awards. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce this year's recipient of the William H. Natcher Award to Senator Edward John Markey of Massachusetts. Senator Edward Markey certainly epitomizes the intent of the William H. Natcher Award, which is awarded for distinguished service in elevating education as a priority to ensure better opportunities for our nation's citizens. Senator Markey's long record of public service, having served 37 years in the House and 8 going on 9 in the U.S. Senate, has shown great respect for every point of the education continuum, a key CEF characteristic. He's a leader in seeking more funding for Head Start, a consistent supporter of K-12 investments, and an advocate for research grants for higher education and for lowering student loan interest rates to make college more affordable. During the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, he was a strong champion for important investments in the E-rate program and efforts to reduce the homework gap. He's also well recognized as a consumer champion, a national leader on energy, environmental protection, and telecommunication policies. Please help me welcome Senator Ed Markey.
Thank you, Luis, so much. Thank you for all the great work which you do. Thank you to Sarah for what you do every single day to keep this incredible organization together. And thank you for this wonderful award, the William Natcher Award. Now, looking at the audience here, not a single person in this audience actually knows who William Natcher is and why his name. Now, 2 people know who he is. Well, 3, 4, 5. So, William Natcher was a congressman from Kentucky. And when I was elected in 1976, he was already 20 years in the United States Congress. He passed away in 1994, having served 40 years in the United States House of Representatives, which at that time I thought was a long time. But now, in my 45th year in the United States Congress, I can still see that what he did was amazing. He still holds the record, and he will always have the record for making 18,000 consecutive roll calls without ever missing one from the first day he was elected until the day before he died. Okay? So that's William Natcher. But moreover, his motto was, if you want a great country, then provide the health care and educational opportunities to the children of our country, and the country within which you are living will be better and better as each year goes by, which reflects the sentiment of what is engraved over the front of the Boston Public Library, which says that the best defense of a nation is the education of its people. And that's what all of you who are gathered today, stand for. It's to make sure that every single child gets the opportunity to maximize all of their God-given abilities. And I know I'm a beneficiary of that. My father drove a truck for the Hood Milk Company, and I am a United States Senator. And I know that without the equivalent of what were Pell Grants when I was going through school, and student loans as I was going through school, my opportunities would not have been much better than my mother and father had. But there were good policies, and there were policies that were enacted in order to make sure that everyone, regardless of their background, could get an access to a good education. So I know that, and I know how fortunate I am. When the pandemic hit, we had a big problem. Colleges, high schools, grammar schools, pre-K, all shut down. And it's a pretty astounding number, and it's a tribute to all the people who are in this room. Twice in 2019, twice in 2020, and once so far in 2021, the Congress came together on a bipartisan basis twice in 2020, on a partisan basis in 2021, to add $275 billion to the education budget of our country. $275 billion. And that was to ensure that the funding was there at all levels. One of the things I was able to add was $7 billion last year for the E-rate to help kids at home. I created the E-rate in 1996 as part of the Communications Act of 1996. Not one single person in America had broadband in February of 1996 when Clinton signed that bill. Not one person had broadband. Now, if you're going to speed up the economy, if you're going to speed up technology to a point where today a 12-year-old girl thinks that she's entitled to a 65-inch HD interactive screen while she's holding her personal device on her lap, watching TV, then you actually have to have a program to ensure that the children of our country get that digital skill set on their school desk. Well, that's my program. It's been a $54 billion program that pays for those computers to be on the desk of kids in South Central LA and Harlem and Roxbury, a 90% subsidy all across the country since 1996. Well, I tried to actually get it for kids at home back then as well. And I couldn't do it. And so I saw my opportunity, and I was able to add earlier this year $7 billion in order to deal with the reality that there are 12 to 17 million kids in America who don't have the internet at home. They're black, they're brown, they're immigrants, and they've been severely, adversely impacted by this crisis. And in the bipartisan bill that we're dealing with right now, there was no funding that was put in. So what I've been doing is working to put in $8 billion a year for the next 5 years to pay for those bills for kids at home. Because it's crazy that kids should have to try to be outside a library or someplace trying to get the free Wi-Fi, right? Now, I don't know if I can get all of it, but I'm going to get a lot of it in this bill because there is a crisis going on out there for poor kids in terms of their access to education. And so that's pretty much, from my perspective, what I know. When I was a boy, I realized that I could compete against the school superintendent's son if I just took my book bag home. Well, the same thing is true today, except the book bag now comes in the form of the internet. And if you don't get it at home, you can't compete against the school superintendent's son. But the kids who are poorer or blue collar today are just as intelligent as they were 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years ago, notwithstanding how people think that those are the good old days. The kids aren't like those kids anymore. They are. And they know when they're not getting the access to the technology. So, and we know that this learning gap that is created by a homework gap is going to turn into an opportunity gap for these kids for the rest of their lives. If they lose the whole third grade, they lose half of their fourth grade, and it just kind of get passed on. But they'll suffer one time. And by the way, they know it right now too, that they're not getting a fair share in the system. So that's why what you do every day is so important, because you fight for the funding to make sure that there's a fairer distribution of all of these opportunities in our country. And it's why I'm committed to making sure that in this reconciliation bill, that we pay for it with the incredible wealth that's been created over the last 20 years for billionaires and millionaires in our country. They should be the ones paying so that we have the revenues in order to take care of all of those children, not only their education, but their health care in our society. So I can't thank you enough. You have no idea yet what receiving the William Natcher Award means to me personally. This guy came from Kentucky, tough as nails, never took a single political contribution. Think about that. You could not corrupt him. You could not compromise him. And his opponents used to say it was like running against God. And what he ran on are your issues. And he delivered that message every single day that he was in Congress, and it's my great honor to receive this award that is named after that. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for everything that you do every single day. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And there's a roll call that's already gone up, 6:45. Thank you all.
So I would like to call on my colleague Emmanuel to join us at the podium.
Okay, glad to be here.
Hello everyone, again my name is Emmanuel Guillory and I am going to be introducing the recipient of the James O'Hara Award. This award is for a person who embodies a lifelong commitment in support of education and for outstanding leadership in advocating for education as a congressional and national priority. And I really do have a distinct honor to present this award in this manner to Chairman Robert C. Bobby Scott. For those of you that know him, you know that he is a champion for education and he is unafraid to advocate and do what he believes is best. But unfortunately, he was not able to make it in person, so there is a video that I will direct your attention to. But before we do that, I'm going to share a little bit about him. In the years since the chairman received CEF's William H. Natcher Award in 2008, he has continued to demonstrate unflagging enthusiasm and support for ensuring that every child in America has access to all the educational opportunities a country can offer. From his position as chairman of the House Education and Labor Committee, he directs an agenda focused on equity in education and ensuring that a college education does not result in crippling debt. In the last year, he helped lead Congress to providing the single largest increase in federal education funding to help students, schools, and colleges continue teaching and learning during the pandemic. He successfully works across the aisle on issues including education for students with disabilities, elementary and secondary education, career technical education, expanding veteran education benefits, and helping underserved students access and complete a college education. Representative Scott has represented Virginia's 3rd District in Congress since 1993, and he is the first African American elected to Congress from Virginia since Reconstruction.
Hi, I'm Congressman Bobby Scott of Virginia's 3rd District, and I chair the House Committee on Education and Labor. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person today, but I want to thank all CEF members for your dedicated advocacy on behalf of students and educators. As the nation's oldest education coalition, CEF has worked with generations of congressional leaders to strengthen education funding and address chronic resource disparities. And for that reason, I'm honored to follow in the footsteps of other education champions in receiving this year's James G. O'Hara Award. Regrettably, the COVID-19 pandemic has both exposed and exacerbated persistent inequalities in education. I'm continuing to work hard to deliver equitable investments in our schools and institutions that they have long needed. So earlier this year, I helped lead the passage of the American Rescue Plan Act. This relief plan provided the most significant one-time federal investment in K-12 education in our nation's history, and it was distributed by the Title I formula to ensure that the greatest resources went to the areas with greatest need. This package also secured a financial lifeline for struggling institutions of higher education. It had provided urgent relief for students facing hunger, homelessness, and other hardships. Now the Education and Labor Committee is focused on ensuring that the Build Back Better Act makes bold investments across the education spectrum. Earlier this month, the committee passed its portion of this historic package, including significant funding to lower the cost of higher education, rebuild our nation's crumbling school facilities, provide universal pre-K to all 3- and 4-year-olds, and increase the number of students eligible for free school lunch. Securing adequate funding for education has always been a major challenge, yet we know that it is a goal we can achieve if we come together and do the work. As Chairman Augustus Hawkins once said, leadership belongs not to the loudest, but to those who day in and day out in all seasons work for the practical realization of a better world. So thank you again for all of your work forging a brighter future for our nation's students. Together, I know we can provide Americans with the education they need to realize their full potential, and thank you again for this honor.
So since the chairman was unable to join us tonight, I do have his lovely award here that I'll hold up so everyone can see. We do plan to present this with him later at some point. And I think I will have my colleague Danny come up next to...
Thanks, Emmanuel. Well, let's keep the fun going. I have the distinct honor of presenting another award to another fierce champion of K-12 education. Talked about it a little bit earlier. The author of actually the original bill, the E-rate bill, is what this focus is. So I am presenting the William Natcher, which we all learned a history lesson today. That award to Representative Grace Meng. So her leadership over the past 18 months has been extraordinary on this issue. Almost overnight, more than 120,000 K-12 schools had closed. A system that serves over 55 million students had been turned on its head. How schools carried out their core function had fundamentally changed. And there was severe capacity and resource restraints. Connecting millions of students with in-home internet service and connected devices would take resources that not every school had. In fact, schools were trying to fix a problem overnight that had been a challenge for years and years. The homework gap, as Senator Markey mentioned, is the inequity of 12 million students not being able to access the internet at home. It's an issue that falls disproportionately on communities of color, low-income households, tribal lands, and rural areas. So with tens of millions of students switching to full-time remote learning, the issue took on a new urgency. So it was clear that federal support was needed, and Representative Grace Meng recognized what was at stake, and she was the House champion while Senator Markey worked in the Senate. She introduced the House version of the Emergency Education Connections Act, and if this legislation wasn't enacted, it would be a shot in the arm to schools and libraries working to provide students connectivity options. So the bill included a boost to the E-rate program, as Senator Markey mentioned. But as anyone who's been around Congress knows, a bill doesn't just simply become law by introducing it. So Representative Meng worked tirelessly to advance this legislation, convincing and rallying her colleagues that schools and libraries were in desperate need of support. And her dogged efforts paid off. In March of this year, the American Rescue Plan included $7 billion for the Emergency Connectivity Fund at the FCC to fund devices and connectivity for schools. And just to show the need for this program, just last week, the FCC announced the initial wave of funding, $1.2 billion to fund over 3,600 applications for over 3,000 schools and 260 libraries. And additional funding will, let's hear it. Additional funding will go out the door very soon to support additional schools and libraries. But Representative Meng and Senator Markey aren't resting on their laurels. They're both working to push, again, sustained funding for this needed program. So, for her steadfast leadership, for supporting schools and libraries during their most precarious moment, and for stepping up and leading on an issue that directly impacts millions of students. I'm proud to present Representative Grace Meng the William Natcher Award. Representative Meng also is not able to join us tonight, but we have a video.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Grace Meng from New York, and I want to thank the Committee for Education Funding for selecting me to receive the William H. Natcher Award. It's a tremendous honor to be chosen, and I'm deeply grateful and humbled that you are recognizing me for my long-standing support for education and in particular my recent work to address the homework gap. As the mom of 2 young boys, I'm passionate about increasing access to the internet. I'm proud to have championed this effort in Congress. As many as 12 million students in the U.S. live in homes without a broadband connection, and this digital divide creates an additional barrier to their academic success. In 2019, long before the outbreak of COVID, I introduced a bill to fund mobile hotspot lending programs. But when schools began to conduct remote learning last year, including in my congressional district in New York City, the situation demanded immediate action. I worked tirelessly to address the problem and introduced another bill to establish funding for schools and libraries to purchase Wi-Fi hotspots, modems, routers, internet-connected devices, and internet service. I worked with Senator Ed Markey, and after a tough fight, we were successful in securing more than $7 billion for this effort. This money was included in the American Rescue Plan. And last week, the first round of funding was dispersed, which included over $1.2 billion for some 3,000 schools and libraries to connect over 3 million students. This approximately $7 billion is essential for the millions of kids who still don't have internet access at home. It's unacceptable and unconscionable that this lack of connectivity continues to be such a huge obstacle to education in our country. Every student in America deserves to have the tools they need to succeed. Just recently, I again partnered with Senator Markey and Senator Chris Van Hollen to build on the victory we had, and we're now seeking $40 billion over 5 years to continue funding for hotspots and internet equipment, so that students have online access well after the coronavirus pandemic ends. Our kids are our future. We must make the needed investments to ensure the next generation's success, which in turn ensures the future success of our nation. In closing, I'd again like to thank the Committee for Education Funding. Thank you so much for this incredible honor. It really means a lot to me. And thank you for the outstanding job you continue to do to improve and advance education in our country. You are the nation's oldest and largest education coalition, and it is a privilege to work with all of you. Best wishes for an enjoyable and successful gala, and much continued success. Thank you so much.
Great, and now I'd like to ask Representative Meng's Chief of Staff, Maeve Haley, to come accept the award on her behalf.
Everyone, I'm Myrna Mandlowitz, and I'm a past president of CEF and co-chair with Peter of this evening's event. And first of all, just want to take a point of personal privilege and thank you all for coming out. I know, I hope you were as excited as I was to actually see everyone in the flesh. So it's just been a wonderful evening. I was asked this evening to make a special announcement, and I'm very honored to do so. Many of you knew Joel Packer, a former CEF president, and for the last few years until his untimely death last year, the executive director of CEF. Most important, Joel was a career educator and a career education advocate who mentored, encouraged, and loved sharing his vast wealth of knowledge on education funding with new lobbyists as they came up through the ranks. The CEF board deliberated on the best way to commemorate Joel's life and decided the best way to memorialize his generous spirit would be through the creation of the Joel Packer Spotlight on Education Advocacy. Beginning next summer, CEF will host a series of spotlights for newer CEF members and interns, as well as interns in offices of education and approach committee members. And as these folks are beginning or contemplating education advocacy careers, we hope that the Joel Packer Spotlight series will give them a special opportunity to engage with, hear and learn from, and be mentored by experienced education advocates in CEF. You'll be hearing much more about this as the year progresses, including asking for your ideas on topics and looking for you to volunteer to be our presenters. Thanks to the CEF board for keeping Joel's memory alive in this very special way. Thank you.
So I want to thank all of you also for coming to such a fun event. I can't express enough how nice it is to see you all and to have such an opportunity to gather in a safe place like this. And I want to also thank my colleagues at ACG Advocacy who helped put together the gala, put name tags out and run videos and lights, and also to the CEF Gala Committee for arranging such a fun event. I have to say, it is very odd for me to stand in front of you without a chart and not making a point about education funding, which is only 2% of the federal budget and provides 3.7% under the president's budget next year. But we do have some great visuals. We have this backdrop here, and I hope we have Max, our fun photographer. So after this is over in about 1 minute, I encourage you to come up here and pose with your friends or your new friends and get a picture taken, and then to tweet out using the hashtag CEF Gala. And to urge you to also check out the CEF Gala program online. You can access it through the QR code that's taped to a lot of the different tables around here. We've got this great space until 8 p.m., so enjoy the rest of the evening and pick up a stress reliever on your way out. They're on the registration table. And tomorrow we'll be back at work advocating for the largest possible education investment in the reconciliation bill and in the 2022 appropriation cycle.